figure out what these people are doing that's so successful in the industry and model after them. There's the saying that, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? So as an entrepreneur, how an entrepreneur could use that quote is, if you want to become a successful entrepreneur in a particular industry, find 5 really successful people in the industry, right? And spend your time around those 5 people.
Hey everyone, it's me again, Jay Christ, and welcome to another episode of the Design Live Show. In episode 111 of TDLS, I sat down with Geoffrey Kent. Geoffrey is a serial entrepreneur, having launched 20 plus entrepreneurial ventures over the last 5 decades, who took his last tech venture, Cognis IT, from launch to successful exit in 6 years over a decade ago. In this episode, we talk about his successful entrepreneurial journey, how he was able to launch 20 plus businesses in his entire entrepreneurial career, actionable insights on how to start the right way in scaling your business to $1 million and beyond, how to build fundable plans that get the money you need to grow your business and exit when and how you want to, and some interesting thoughts and perspective from Geoffrey that we really needed to ponder about artificial intelligence tools and much more. So make sure to stick around until the end. Hopefully guys, you'll learn a lot of things about starting your entrepreneurial journey and getting started in terms to your building that brand or business. And without further ado, I hope you enjoy this episode. You're listening to the Design Life Show, a podcast that's helping everyone grow to live a meaningful and creative life. It's me, Jay Christ, a designer from the Philippines, best known for being an advocate of essentialism and optimism. I'm sitting down with awesome people to talk about their journey, their process, and the lessons they've learned along the way. Hey everyone, it's me again, Jay Christ, and welcome to another episode of the Design Live Show. So it's another special episode, and I'm happy to have Geoffrey Kent here in another, hopefully will be fruitful and meaningful conversations for the community. And where I've prepared a lot of questions, Geoffrey, in my end, and asked the community for especially the trends right now and the business innovations that are going on right now, and hopefully we could give some value to the community. And without further ado, Geoffrey, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, and you?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having some time or dropping by on the podcast. And just to give a little context for the listeners, can you give a little background about yourself?
Sure. So I call myself a semi-retired serial entrepreneur. I sold my last company 12 years ago, and I've spent the last 12 years really just providing mentorship to other entrepreneurs, trying to encourage more people to be crazy enough to do what I do on a daily basis, and start a business. And then once someone is crazy enough to take me up on that offer, try to do what I can to be as much of a resource to them as possible to give them the highest probability for success. But so I always tell people that I think part of what makes me a little bit different as it relates to entrepreneurship is I've studied this, I've taught this, and I've done this. So and I'll go through all that really quickly. So I my MBA or master's degree is from the Wharton School of Business. One of my 3 majors was entrepreneurial management, so that's how I've studied this. And I was an adjunct professor of entrepreneurship at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, in the United States, in the 2010s. So I taught 5 entrepreneurship classes each semester, both in U.S. domestic and international entrepreneurship. So that's how, kind of, taught
That
this.
that's
And then
amazing.
in terms of doing this, Over the past 5 decades, I've launched more than 20 successful ventures. So and as I said, my last business was a private cloud computing information technology support service company. I've actually never done the same thing twice. So the 20 plus businesses have all been in different industries.
Uh-huh.
My expertise is in building businesses, not in not towards any specific industry. So
Yeah,
yeah.
100%. Yeah, that's super. I'm super grateful to have you, Jeffrey, in the show, and hopefully, I'm pretty sure a lot of people would get a lot of value from your insights and inputs, especially for the questions that I have for you right now. Just building this 20 business, or you mentioned successful businesses for the past few decades. So how do you get started? Because most of the time, right, people are pretty scared to jump or big think, big think differently, like most entrepreneurs like you, right? So if those people who are pretty much scared to build their first businesses, what advice that you could give to them?
Yeah, so I always when I meet a prospective or an existing entrepreneur, I like to assess whether or not they're truly an entrepreneur.
Uh-huh.
There's two things that I like to see in them that So I'll ask a couple questions, but what I'm trying to elicit from them is two traits. One is so entrepreneurs are are constantly filled with ideas on things that they can monetize, right?
Yes.
So, people talk about comedians will say that we view the world through a lens of comedy. Everything we see the humor in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Entrepreneurs are similar in that they see the world through a lens of monetization. Everything they see a way to turn it into a business to make money, right? So they're not necessarily driven by money, but they just see how to turn what they see into a business. So,
Mm-hmm.
I might ask someone, what do you like to do for fun or just to relax? And they might say, hey, I'm into walking and I take a 1 hour walk every day. And I said, well, so when you come back from your 1 hour walk, you know, tell me kind of what have you observed in that 1 hour, and how's your mind working? What are you remembering? And so a typical entrepreneur will go on that 1 hour walk,
Uh-huh.
excuse me, and they'll come up with they'll see 100 things in that hour
Yes.
that they could turn into a business, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll see someone cutting their lawn. Oh my God, I could start a lawn cutting business, so on and so forth. And so that's one trait. The second trait is that all of these ideas that the entrepreneur comes up with, in our mind, we think they're the best idea that
Mm-hmm.
mankind has ever, created, right? And we're willing to prove to ourselves that these ideas are so great that you literally would be willing to go homeless for your idea, right? That's a trait of an entrepreneur. And I actually get a lot of kickback from people about this. Hey, no, everybody's not going to be homeless. I'm like, well, then they're probably not an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
I won't back off on this. Because when you read biographies of very successful entrepreneurs, there tends to be a common theme. They may have been homeless at some point. There usually is mental, physical abuse, something like that. But there's they basically hit rock bottom and had to pull themselves up and from the abyss of whatever it
Mm-hmm.
was they were dealing with. So you read enough biographies of successful entrepreneurs, you will see that there is a common theme of some type of turmoil that they've got to pull themselves out of, and it's pulling themselves out of that turmoil that lets them know what they're capable of, right? So
Yeah.
those are two traits that I think every entrepreneur possesses, in order to truly be an entrepreneur. Now, I also tell people that I ask people these questions to determine if they're an entrepreneur. The reason I do that is because I've never seen a successful entrepreneurial venture without an entrepreneur in the business. But
Yes.
that doesn't have to be that entrepreneur doesn't have to be the founder, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, if I'm talking to someone and they think they're an entrepreneur, and I determine with their answers that they're not an entrepreneur, what I tell them to do is if you really want to do something entrepreneurial, find someone who is an entrepreneur to work with you. Bring them into the business, right?
Yes.
But there
Mm-hmm.
has to be someone in the business who, because entrepreneurship is incredibly difficult. And so
100%.
when you're going to be you're going to be faced every day with all kinds of obstacles. And if you don't really love what you're doing, and this isn't at the core of who you are, it's too easy to give up, right? And say, hey, I don't need this aggravation. I can just go out and get a job, right? Why am I doing this? But if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to do it because you don't fit in at a job, right?
Yes.
You can't work for other people. And so, again, I tell people if you determine that you're not an entrepreneur, find an entrepreneur to work with you. But your business won't succeed unless there's someone in the business who, no matter what obstacles the business faces, someone is willing to go homeless to make sure that that business succeeds. Someone has to have
Mm-hmm.
the perseverance
The
and
grit.
persistence
Yeah.
to keep going, regardless of how big that obstacle is, right?
100%. I think that's really powerful. Pretty much most people, hopefully, I mean, most people would think like, I want to be an entrepreneur. The lifestyle I see, you see glamorized lifestyle on the social media, right? So it's a romanticized lifestyle of entrepreneur. It's really, it's really like sometimes, some dreams are really coming true if you're an entrepreneur. So basically, you have to really have that passion on it and grit, like what Jeffrey said. You have to really understand what you love doing and monetize it as much as you can, right? So,
Yeah, I
uh,
mean, see, unfortunately, with the media,
yes,
no one wants to talk to you when you're struggling. They only
yes,
want to
hundred
talk to you
percent,
when you're successful. So when you're reading about successful entrepreneurs in the media, they're being talked to once they've become successful, right?
yes,
So, but that's the first time you hear about them. So the general public, reads the story about this successful person and they're like, oh my God, this happened overnight. This is really glamorous. Let me get into this too, and I can succeed. And overnight, I'll be be interviewed by someone or on the television or in some publication. What they're not showing you is I guarantee you every single successful person, went through decades of struggle to get to that success, right?
mm-hmm.
So, if for instance, you read some story about someone who's doing really well and, living a nice life because they've succeeded in entrepreneurship, what the story doesn't tell you is the 20 or 30 years that they struggled to get to that point, right?
Oh yeah,
When they were
mm-hmm.
going through that struggle, it wasn't sexy. It wasn't worth talking to them. It only became interesting to talk to them as far as the media is concerned
Yes,
when they reach that pinnacle of success.
yes,
So, and that's the only time we hear about those people. We don't hear about them when they're going through, when you're
mm-hmm.
operating your business out of your basement, and you can't pay bills and creditors are knocking your door down every day. No one wants to talk to you at that point.
Yes, 100%. And you have to really be intentional on doing what you love, really, to make sure that you'll be successful in it. Jeffrey, just a quick questions in terms of working with someone who is an entrepreneur. So you mentioned that. So I think you're also one of the great not only entrepreneur but mentors that I follow online, and I've also followed you on Alignable and LinkedIn. So when someone if someone is listening that I don't think I'm an entrepreneur, I don't know what to do. So how could someone could find some someone who could mentor them, what are the steps that they need to do just to kick off or get started on entrepreneurship?
Yeah, well, I mean, so the first step is really to take the time to figure out what you're passionate about. You had mentioned it just a second ago. Successful entrepreneurs. If you find successful entrepreneurs and have a conversation with them,
Mm-hmm.
there will be a common theme. The common theme is that they're incredibly happy, right?
Yes.
And the reason they're happy is, they're doing what they love, right?
Uh,
When you do what you love what you do. The love you have for what you do permeates every pore of your body. And that's incredibly attractive to people. People want to be around people that they know genuinely love what they do, right? And are constantly happy. It's really the first step is take a personality test. I would actually recommend people take multiple personality tests
mm-hmm.
because you want to make sure that you're not gaming the test to get the result you want. You want to
Yeah.
make sure that the results that you get are consistent. And that's why you want to take more than one test. But then once you've taken a couple tests, you see the consistent results, and you have a real good sense of who you are, what you love to do, and what you're passionate about. Then start to look for opportunities, business opportunities that allow you to work in your passion 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, right? Because you won't view it as work. It, it'll
Mm-hmm.
it'll it'll be as much of who you are and what you do as
Yes.
breathing, sleeping, and eating, right?
Mm-hmm.
So so that's kind of the first step. Again, build a business around your passion. But then once you've identified, okay, this is what I want to do, then it's get out there and just start talking to potential customers to see whether there's a particular problem that you could help solve. In the type of business that you're going to launch, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need market validation. And so, and you're only going to get that from talking to potential customers, and finding out what their pain points are, and seeing if you can come up with a solution in the structure of your business, right? You can come up with a product or service that
Mm-hmm.
solves their problem. And if you're able to uncover some problems or a problem, and you think you have a solution, you're going to go back to that customer base and show them your solution, and let them test it and see and get confirmation from them that your solution actually solves the problem,
Mm-hmm.
and get them to quantify how much it solves the problem, right? And once you have all of that, now you've got a really strong foundation, to build the business. Then the thing you really want to do is within whatever industry you're in, find some successful companies in the industry, and surround yourself with executives from those companies. Try to
100%.
find out
Mm-hmm.
what organizations they're members of, what events they attend. Start trying to join those organizations, attending those events, so that you can be in the same room with those executives and can begin to build relationships with them. And as you build relationships with them, learn how they do what they do, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
successful running the kind of business you want to start and build. Figure out what these people are doing that's so successful in the industry, and model after them. There's a saying that, you are the average of the five people you spend the most time with, right? So as an entrepreneur, how an entrepreneur could use that quote is, if you want to become a successful entrepreneur in a particular industry, find five really successful people in the industry, right? And spend your time around those five people. Do everything they do, right? Watch them hawkishly to figure out, how are they succeeding? What are the types of things they're doing? And just copy them. Do all those same things. You'll have the same level of success they have, right? When you mirror their behavior. So
100%.
those are,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's I mean, I know you're in the Philippines. I'm in the United States, so I don't want to give you specific names of organizations, yeah, because I don't know whether they're also in the Philippines. But in the United States, there are ways to get mentors
Mm-hmm.
through. So, for instance, there's an organization in the United States called the Service Corps of Retired Executives, or
Uh-huh.
SCORE, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these are former senior executives in corporate America who, once they retire from their corporations, they decide to donate their time to this organization, SCORE,
Yes.
and
Mm-hmm.
they act as free mentors to entrepreneurs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So SCORE has offices all over the United States, probably hundreds of offices. So
Mm-hmm.
in any major city, you can find a SCORE office. So
Yes.
again, I don't know whether there's something like that in the Philippines, um,
Mm-hmm. And
but
I
there
think
might
so.
be.
Yeah, I think so. I think we also have that, and I think most of the resources as well are available online. So there's no excuses if you want to start building your business or being a creative entrepreneur or an entrepreneur right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, well,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned Alignable and LinkedIn. I mean,
Yes.
these are
Mm-hmm.
two.
100%.
Alignable
Super
is more of
useful.
a social networking platform. LinkedIn's more of a social media platform. But I mean, there are all kinds of resources. I was on the
Mm-hmm.
board of. I live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I was on the board of the Free Library of Philadelphia for almost 15 years. The
Mm-hmm.
Free Library of Philadelphia and every major library in the United States
Yes.
has a business department. And so in the business department at the library in Philadelphia, I mean, we had classes on writing business plans, just all kinds of stuff. Uh, um, and the board was made up of senior executives in the city of Philadelphia, and we donated time to organizations that were coming to the library to get trained about entrepreneurship, right? There's
Lots
you
of
know,
ways. Yeah.
yeah, there are lots of ways to get mentors
Mm-hmm.
and lots of ways to learn about entrepreneurship.
100%. Yeah, Jeffrey, thank you so much for sharing that. So just a follow up questions in regards to that. When most of the time, in my closeness community, most of the questions that I get is how can I improve my efficiency? How can I be more productive? Or how can I make sure that my decision making process is right, or doesn't fail in the long run. So most budding entrepreneurs out there are really really uh, um, pretty much um, because of there's a lot of noise, right? So online, right,
Yeah.
and especially online or in the social media realm, or there's a lot of noise. So what's your best practical advice for those who want to improve their efficiency, productivity, and especially their business decision making process?
Yeah, so I don't consider, any of those areas my area of expertise.
Mm-hmm.
However, if I'm trying to figure out how to be more efficient, how to make better decisions, again, I want to surround myself with people that I think make good
Mm-hmm.
decisions,
Yes.
run efficient businesses,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that I can, have conversations with them to figure out what they're doing, what tools they're using, um, you know, uh, um, what their process is and how they go about their day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I gain from, those conversations, access to the resources that they're personally using to master all of these traits, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's how I would go about it. The other thing that you can do is, so you can go on to Amazon.com, right? So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I always tell people there's a science to everything. You can teach anyone how to do
Yes.
anything, right?
Uh-huh.
Because there's nothing in the world that hasn't been done before by at least someone, and usually, you know, once someone does something, then they write a book about what they've done. So, they provide the blueprint on how to do something. So that's the science of doing something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a science to doing anything. And so if I wanted to make better decisions, there's a science to that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there may be multiple approaches, but there's a
Yes.
science to making better decisions. And so one thing I would you can do is you can go onto like Amazon.com and look up books
Mm.
on decision making,
100%.
practical decision making, just decision making. I mean, type whatever you want as it relates to decision making in the search string under books, and you'll get a litany of books that have been written about the topic,
Yes.
right? And the beauty of a tool like Amazon is, they get reader feedback, and then they give books, stars from 1 to 5, right? So once you go in and say, hey, I'm on Amazon.com, I'm looking up books, on decision making. Now I've got 1 million books here on decision making, and they've all been ranked with stars. Let me sort that list by star ranking, and let me take all the
Mhm.
books with 5 stars, which are considered by all readers to be the best books on the topic. Let me read those first. And maybe, if there's so many of these 5 star rated books on this topic, by the time I finish reading those, I don't need to go to the 4 or 3 or 2 or 1 star books.
Yes.
I've gotten more than enough information to be able to do what I need to do. Right.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's
it.
how I would approach it.
Yeah, that's that's powerful, and I think most of the time we forgot to maximize these resources, like those books that have already written, right? So especially
Yeah.
by those successful entrepreneurs and people who who really had that real experience, and getting those golden nuggets is really powerful if you want to really get started, uh, or really build a big business, or an empire for under your name, right? So, yeah, Jeffrey, with in terms to just to shift quick or shift gear a little bit, you mentioned that you build a business in the IT sector or IT industry. So, just to mostly right now, right? Most people are using technologies, right? And speaking of system, there is AI now, artificial intelligence. What do you think about AI?
I mean, it's, AI I mean, information technology in general is a very broad topic, right? So,
100%.
having run an information technology company, and most people are not information technology savvy. I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't consider myself to be an information technology person.
Same
To
here.
be perfectly honest with you, I just ran an IT company, but I had 2 co-founders that were very technical, right? So, um, um, and you know, so part of why I probably know more about IT than 99% of the population, but I've also worked with people who are absolute you know uh, uh, gurus on the topic, and so when
Yes.
I compare myself to them, I don't have that level of knowledge, and that's why I consider myself to be a neophyte as it relates to my knowledge of information technology. But in terms of artificial intelligence, it's I always tell people that technology is merely a tool, right? So what technology allows you to do, because computers basically are much faster than humans, right? So
Yeah.
they allow you to do technology is incredibly effective if you, as a business owner, look at what do you do manually that could be automated, right? And so if you're spending a lot of time doing something manually and you automate it, you're going to be able to do it, or the computer can do it much faster, more efficiently, at less cost, right?
Yes.
Um, so what you want to do as a business owner is look for manual processes that you can automate, and then figure out what's the best technology tool to allow me to do that. Right. So AI
100%.
is just the next best thing at leveraging technology to make our lives more efficient, more effective, and less costly, right?
Yeah. 100%.
So I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I don't think I don't think it's the best thing since sliced bread. I don't have any negative opinions
Mm-hmm.
about it. It's just a tool, right? So,
Yes.
you got to figure out within the confines of my life and my business, where is AI, where is AI really going to help me? And where it will, use it for that, but don't go
Mm-hmm.
into it thinking, well, AI can do everything, and basically I can sit around and do nothing, and AI will run my business for me. No, it won't. You know, what AI will help you do is there are things that you're doing manually that you can automate. AI is going to be one of the technology tools that will help you do that faster, more efficiently, and at less cost, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
so if you're doing something like, you know, AI, I create daily posts for some social media platform, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
Content marketing. Mm-hmm.
AI can help you in that process because it can create content for you. It can help you in terms of posting that content for you. It can do a lot in terms of moderating discussion of your content and responding to it. But I personally would never, um, um, I would never sit back and allow AI to do everything for me. Even
100%.
even if
Mm-hmm.
I know enough about entrepreneurship and that's all I post about. I don't really use AI to generate content. I've got more content than I'll ever release to the general public in my
Yes.
lifetime. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
really need help generating content. But if I were to create content using I would then take whatever AI gave me, and
Mm-hmm.
then I would customize it so that it's speaking in my voice.
Yes.
It's saying what I want the the piece of information to say, right? I wouldn't completely just rely on AI and then just post whatever AI gives me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some people may do that, but I mean, I know from because I create content quite irregularly, and from people that are writers and different people as it relates to in the writing field, that we can tell that when something's AI created, right?
Yes.
And someone hasn't taken the time to edit what AI gave you,
Mm-hmm.
because it's if you write enough, it's AI created content's easy to discover.
100%. And I think it all boils down on having some, having some time to really uh, think think deeply about using this, right? So there's a lot of practical applications and use cases of AI, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure that it's helping your business, right? And at the same time, it really provides value, not only for your business but for your community or for those people who you mentor or who you serve, who you serve, right? So, and I like what I've said, Jeffrey. AI is just a tool. Tool is just a tool, and it's our
Yeah,
responsibility to ask the right questions, why we use it and how we use it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So again, it's like I said, the backbone of any technology is a computer. And a computer, what makes a computer different from a human is, you can process information a lot faster than a human can, and
Yeah.
and the computer's not going to make mistakes that a human would, right? So, if you want to cut down on mistakes, you want to get stuff done quicker, anything that is using the computer is going to allow you to do that. But again, you also have to to understand that
Yes.
a
Hmm.
human programs the computer, right?
Yes.
So
Hmm.
so it's not it's a computer just because it's a computer doesn't mean it's flawless, right? It's
100%.
still
Hmm.
it possesses the flaws of the
There's still
human who
errors.
programmed the computer.
Yes. there's still errors. And speaking of that, like right, well, we on building businesses. Right now, what do you like? What are you using right now in terms of helping those people who like to build their own business? Well, do you have like courses or tools, or do you have like books recommendations for them?
Yeah, I mean, I have a variety of ways that I mentor people that I mentor,
Mm-hmm.
using all of the things you've mentioned. But I really, um, my what I've seen work when people work with mentors, coaches, whatever, is there's really three things that in order for a mentoring or coaching relationship to work, three things have to exist. One, you have to like the person you're working with, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you need to give them an opportunity to discover who you are as a coach, to figure out whether they like you or not. Um, then assuming you like them, you have to respect their intellect and know that this person possesses deep knowledge in a subject area that I can use and apply to my business to move my business forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
so you have to know that or believe that I have information that if I share it is going to help you in your business, right? So you got to give people an opportunity to discover, does this person actually know what they say they know? And then last but not least, um, everyone has, me being a business coach, I have a teaching style. You know, someone,
Mm-hmm.
potential student or potential entrepreneur has a learning style. We all have learning styles, right? So my teaching style has to be conducive to your learning style, right? If you don't like the way I teach, you're not going to retain the information I give to you, right?
Yes.
And so you have to give people the opportunity to observe you as a teacher and instructor to see whether the style that you teach is consistent to their learning style. So what I do when someone approaches me and say, "Hey, I need help," I'm like, "Okay, well, I need to give you an opportunity to figure out whether you like me, whether you respect what I can teach you, and whether
Mm-hmm.
my teaching style is conducive to your learning style." So my recommendation to entrepreneurs is, everything I do on alignable.com, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
so I said, you know, if you're not if you have an alignable profile, great. But if you don't get one, join Alignable. You can get a free membership. You don't have to pay.
100%.
There are paid memberships, but you don't have to pay. You can get a free membership on Alignable. And then once you have a membership, I have my own group on Alignable that I call Entrepreneur University, right? And everything I do on Alignable is free. So join Alignable, join my group, Entrepreneur University on Alignable, and then through my university, here's how I'm going to give you an opportunity to do the three things I just mentioned. So, first of all, I'm going to send you a free checklist that I developed that kind of walks someone through the process of how would you launch a business from scratch, exponentially scale it to a desired exit, so
Wow.
that through your exit you can not only secure your individual future, but you can create generational wealth for your family. I've done this myself. And so I teach what I know. Because I've done this, I want to teach other people how to do this, right? So I have a free checklist, and it's like you join my group, you can download my free checklist. That gives you at a high level, the process, right? I will tell an entrepreneur to join alignable.com where they can get a free
Mm-hmm.
membership. And then once they're on Alignable, or they may already have a membership, but either way, once they're onlineable, they can join my the group that I formed to mentor entrepreneurs. It's called the Entrepreneur University Group on Alignable. That's free as well. And then through that group, there are a variety of things that I provide to entrepreneurs for free to help them in this process, right? So the first thing I developed a free checklist that they can download through the group, and that checklist is going to take them through the process that I've personally gone through to become successful in entrepreneurship. So it basically it shows you how you would launch from nothing, exponentially grow a business
Mm-hmm.
to a desired exit, and through that exit, you're going to both secure your individual future and create generational wealth for your family. I've done this, and so I teach what I've done, and so the first step in that process is to download this free checklist so that you see at a very high level kind of the process that want to take you through or the journey of mentoring you as an entrepreneur to get you to where you want to go, whatever your vision is for your prospective business. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then from there, what I also do on the group, I post daily, almost every day of the year. One of two things. The bulk of what I post are questions that entrepreneurs should be asking themselves. You know, I can ask. The reason I do this is, Alignable has about 10 million entrepreneurs on the platform,
Mm-hmm.
and so and it's a platform for the United States and Canada or North America. So basically, there's probably about 27 and 28 million entrepreneurs in North America. So
Mm-hmm.
basically more than one out of every three entrepreneurs in North America is on Alignable. And so if I ask a question, for instance, let's say I ask someone, have you ever raised angel investor capital? And if you have, how did you go about doing it? There are going to be probably a couple hundred entrepreneurs on the platform who have actually raised angel investor capital. So
Yes.
what I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to do is ask a question that solicits feedback from people who have experience navigating whatever obstacle I've mentioned in the form of a question, to so that other entrepreneurs on the platform can educate the rest of the entrepreneurs on the platform, right? So I do that probably 6 out of the 7 days a week. And then at least one day of the week, I read voraciously. So I will find an article that I know will help entrepreneurs. And I will then post that, not the article itself, but I will take snippets of that article and post it onlineable for people to read, to teach them about some concept that I think is helpful. The beauty of Alignable is
Yes.
is they
Super
force you
useful.
to write something in 750 characters. So
Mm-hmm.
so I basically, if I read a 4 or 5 page article, I've got to figure out what are the most valuable 8 or 9 sentences,
Yeah.
and put that in the form of a post and post it
Mm-hmm.
on Alignable. So I do that. I every Tuesday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I host what's called a Smart Connect onlineable. So this is really just a networking meeting where the Entrepreneurial University group has about 1,000 members, and so it's an opportunity for members of the group to meet each other, right? So through this Smart Connect event for 1 hour each week, we get on, and I'm kind of the moderator, but what it does is I'll hit a button and say, okay, set up meetings, and it'll pair people for 7 minutes to get to know each other a little bit better, right? And so through the course of a 60-minute meeting, you're able to meet between, depending on how well I manage the event, 6 to 8 fellow entrepreneurs, right?
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
and and I tell entrepreneurs that don't just go into this thinking, hey, I'm trying to find a new customer. I mean, hopefully it becomes that, but you also need to think of, you may find someone who's much more senior than you or has much more experience than you who might be able to mentor you.
Yes.
Or you
100%.
might find someone who just has a bigger business than you that you could partner with, so that now you can go after business that your company normally wouldn't be able to go after because you're too small, right? But by partnering with a bigger company, you know, you're able to and maybe the opportunity is so big that neither of you could go after it individually, but if you collectively partner, you guys can now go after this opportunity and find a way to split the work and the revenue, right? So it's a way to start to scale your company through strategic alliance partnerships. So there are a variety of ways that you can leverage meeting someone new. right? It doesn't always have to be, they have, I want them to potentially be a customer. If they're not a customer, I have no interest in talking to them. No, people can help
Yes.
you in a lot of different
Mhm.
ways, right?
Yeah.
So then also within the group, on every other Wednesday, so I do this once a quarter, I have a six-part teaching series. So that free checklist that you would have downloaded in the beginning, um, it teaches you six concepts that, if you infuse them into any entrepreneurial venture, you're going to have a really, really high probability of success in entrepreneurship. And so what I do is I take each of those six concepts that are in that free checklist, and I have a six-part teaching series. So every other Wednesday, I will teach for 60 minutes one of the six concepts, right? So I will teach, the concept in 10 or 15 minutes. I always take an audience member or an attendee, and I will walk them through in 5 to 10 minutes how they would actually implement what I taught that week in their business. And then the balance of the hours is spent just asking questions about the week's topic. And this is a recurring series, so every quarter I just repeat it, right? Um, and then, last but not least, um, being part of the group and connected to me, I connect to everyone that joins the group. So you can reach out to me and schedule a one-on-one, conversation, right? Which again is free. And so, when I talked about earlier, you want to, coaching relationships work when you like someone, when you respect their intellect,
Mm-hmm.
and when they have a teaching style that's conducive to your learning style. Well, you know, if we have a one-on-one call, uh, uh, you have a really good opportunity to get to know whether you like me or not. If um, if you read all of my blog posts, um, you attend my teaching sessions, um, you get a good sense of, does this person actually know what they profess to know about entrepreneurship? And by attending the teaching session, pretty much alone where I'm teaching, you actually see my teaching style, and then you can figure out, is this conducive to your learning style? So if at the end of the day it's like, okay, well, I like Jeff. I think he knows a lot about entrepreneurship, and I think I can learn from him. And if I apply successfully what he's taught me in my business, it's going to help me get to my to whatever my goal is faster, right? And I think I can absorb what he's teaching because, I like the way he teaches, right? And I think it's conducive to my learning style. Well, you've found all of that out, and you haven't paid me a penny, right? Right.
Yeah.
So if at the end of all of this you're like, okay, I check all those boxes with Jeff. I want an even closer working relationship with him. Then I have all kinds of additional resources that, from I have an ebook that's on Amazon now that I sell. I'm about to release my first book on entrepreneurship. It should go to print this week. So by next month, I will
Congrats.
have an
Mhm.
actual book that will also be sold on Amazon. Um, I have a mini course. I do this six-part teaching series, and it's been recorded and it's been edited, and so you can get that in the form of a mini course, right?
Mhm.
Um, you know, um, I can actually have a one-on-one, extended consultation with you. I have an online course. It's a 7-week course where, you know, that checklist, that free checklist that kind of walked you through this process of scaling your business. I have an actual 7-week course that will go through all of this in great detail, right? Um, I could coach an individual executive or business owner, if they want, very personalized individual coaching, I can do that. The person could say, "Hey, well, I've gotten a lot from this individual coaching. I'd like for you to coach my entire management team," right? If the business has prospered. So I can do all of those things, right? Obviously, I charge for all of that, all of this other stuff, but you know, I allow you to kind of vet me to figure out, do I like Jeff? Does Jeff know what he says he knows about entrepreneurship? And can I learn from Jeff? Is his teaching style conducive to my learning style? You can figure all of that out for free through a variety of things that I have available to anyone. And then if you, as I said, if you say, hey, I've checked all those boxes, I want to work with Jeff more closely, then that's when I would say, okay, it makes sense for you to pay for something that I could give you that could help you in your business, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I personally part of the alignable community, so I find you, Jeffrey, really committed to bringing value to the community, and I'm really grateful for the knowledge you've shared as well on our last call. So I think most people would really love to uh, find more about your courses as well. One of the things that I'm really interested is your course. I mean, your course regarding the scaling your business from $1 million to beyond. Can you give a little walkthrough on that, just to for those who are listening who might probably want to reach out to you?
Yeah, so as I said, it's a 7 week course. So week one, I and talked about this earlier in the first part of our conversation. It's you're going to be a more effective entrepreneur
Mm-hmm.
if you're doing what you love to do, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So in week one of my course, I help people discover what they're passionate about, and then so that we can figure out, we can brainstorm what type of business would allow you to work in your passion, what's going to allow you to leverage your passions and work in your passion 24/7, 365, right? So that's week one. Now, once we've figured out, okay, we're the idea is to start business X, whatever that is. Then it's all about week two is, I need you to become the dominant provider of your products or services before you attempt to expand your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what entrepreneurs tend to do, most entrepreneurs start having left a good paying job that pays all their bills. So now they're in a scenario where they have no money coming in, but they still have their bills, right? So you become desperate.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's, any dollar is a good dollar, any client's a good client because I need to be able to pay my bills. Well, that's how you fail very quickly, right? When you try to be everything to everybody. I tell entrepreneurs that everything you need to succeed in entrepreneurship, you can learn from one customer. So what you want to do is what's counterintuitive. You actually want to focus on getting one customer. And it starts with, um, you know, just talking to potential customers to discover problems that they have that you could uniquely solve with whatever type of business you've launched, right? Getting confirmation from them once you've come up with a solution that the solution actually solves their problem, helping them, quantify for you the degree to which the problem you or the solution you've come up with solves their problem, and then that information that you've gotten from that prospective customer is going to really be all you need to scale your business, right? Because you'll have the answers to all the questions that anyone would want to ask someone who's got a product or service they could potentially use. Um, Outside of that, the next thing, the week three is how do you form unconventional strategic alliances with larger companies who basically can, over the life of your business, feed you with a stream of pre-qualified leads, right?
Mm-hmm.
The beauty of the small business, large business working relationship is that large businesses, well, first of all businesses start small. So every large business was a small
Yes.
business at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And people that work for large organizations, particularly if they've been there for the duration of the growth of the organization, they remember what it was like to be a small business. And to be honest with you, that's probably when they had the most fun working in the company, you
Yes.
know.
Mm-hmm.
And so um, so what happens when you have success and you get larger is you start to form a lot of bureaucracy because you have to hire a lot of people and you have to manage those people properly. So you form all these different departments, and now you've got all kinds of rules and regulations. Well, you know, large companies have a ton of bureaucracy. So when a large company wants someone in a large company wants to do something, they have to ask for 10 levels of management approval to be able to do anything, right? No matter how menial it is, whatever it is they want to do.
Yes.
Um, you don't have that bureaucracy in a small business. You don't have to
Yeah.
ask anyone for permission to do anything. If you see an opportunity, you can just go and pursue that opportunity. So, and large companies realize that. So, the relationship is great in that large companies have large marketing budgets. So, if you have a large business partner, you can leverage their marketing budget to identify leads. Once the lead is identified, they can pass it on to you, their small business partner. You can close the deal. You can do the bulk of the work. And, if you need resources, your large business partner can provide you resources to get the work done. And then you find an equitable way to split the revenue, right? Um, and then once you have that, well, the clients that you get from your large business partners, you want to infuse world-class customer service into what you do so that you retain these customers and you actually transform the customers into evangelists who buy everything you sell for the duration of the life of your business, and they refer you to their peers. I always tell entrepreneurs the best sales force money can't buy is your customer base, right? So you as a business owner are always perceived to be a salesperson. So we don't trust salespeople. So it's not that you can't overcome that, but it's difficult. It's much easier to sell someone when
Mhm.
you're leveraging someone that the person you're trying to sell doesn't view as a salesperson. So you get their peer to sell to them, and you do that through leveraging the customers and the good customer relationships you've developed to give them the authority to sell on your behalf, right?
Yes.
Selling becomes much easier. Then you want to focus on what are called leading metrics, right? So every business has to record all of its economic activity, financial activity. Most companies will have a bookkeeper, and then you probably hire an accounting firm to help you prepare your taxes. So you're going to have standard financial statements in your business, income statement, balance sheet, cash flow statement, ratio analysis, all that information that you see on these reports. They're called lagging metrics. It tells you activity that has already happened in the past, right?
Mhm.
So for instance, if we're in the month of April now, so you'll have you know how much profit you made in March. Well, if you don't like, you had a goal for what you wanted to do in March, and let's say you didn't meet that goal. So then if I ask you the question, well, what are you going to do about it? There's no answer to that question because March is gone. You can't change the number, right? So, it's the question then becomes, well, well, we can't change what happened in March, even though we don't like the number. But going forward, how do we correct that so that, when we're forecasting and have goals for future months, we're always meeting or exceeding those goals? But you've got to figure out what did I do wrong in March that got me off track, so that I can correct it and move forward. Well, you can't do it by looking at lagging metrics. You can only do it by looking at leading metrics. So
Mhm.
leading metrics are things that lead to sales, right? So the easiest way to do this is to reverse engineer one sale that you've already made, so that you understand what is the process I went through to actually make the sale. What was
Yes.
the
Mhm.
first thing I did? Oh, I sent out an email, and then what happened? Well, some people saw the email and responded to it. They called up, my phone number that I included in the email message. And then I had a conversation with them. And then what happened? Oh, well, then, some percentage of them wanted to actually meet with me. So I set up appointments and went to visit them. And then what happened? Well, I had a conversation with them and pre-qualified the what I thought the opportunity was, and I was able to get enough information from some of them to be able to give them a proposal. And then what happened? Well, then, the people that I gave a proposal to wanted me to actually present my proposal. So I gave a series of presentations. And then what happened? Well, the presentations I made, some percentage of those people asked me to give them contracts. And then what happened? And then, well, a percentage of, one person signed one of the contracts that I gave them. Okay, well, now you understand all of what your leading metrics are, all of those things, how many emails you sent out each day, how many incoming phone calls did you have with people based on those emails. All of this you can boil down to what are the things that I need to do every day to get the number of sales that I want each month, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the very last thing is in order to give yourself the highest probability of executing on your entrepreneurial vision, you have to surround yourself with an A team, right? I always
Yes.
tell people
Mm-hmm.
that, if you give a great opportunity to a C team, they'll find a way to fail. But if you give a mediocre opportunity to an A team, they'll find a way to transform that into success, right? So it's all about surrounding yourself with the best and brightest, right? So you've got to figure out, who do I need? What are the right roles for people? And this includes, it could potentially be co-founders. Again, I mentioned earlier that you might determine that you're not an entrepreneur. So you got to find an entrepreneur to work with you. So you could potentially be co-founders. You're going to need executive leaders. You're going to need managers. You're going to need staff. You're going to have advisors and mentors. You're going to need to form a board of directors at some point. All of these people are part of your team. And so as you're bringing these people into your organization, as your organization is starting to thrive, if you surround yourself with great people, again, I go back to the quote of, you are the average of the five people you spend the most time with, right? So when you surround yourself with great people, and put them in the right roles that allow them to flourish, and use their talents to the best of their ability to help you get where you want to go, then you have an incredibly high probability for success. And so then week 7 of my course is just, okay, the first 6 things that I taught you, how do you do all of these things in concert so that every day you're doing all of these things to give yourself the highest probability for success, right?
100%. I think, those things are really important. And thank you for sharing that, Jeffrey. And before we end this podcast session, so what's your best books recommendations for people who want to go above and beyond when it comes to entrepreneurship?
Yes. Well, again, we've touched on it, a couple of times here. It's, if you want to be the best entrepreneur you can be, read everything you can get your hands on as it relates to entrepreneurship and small
Mm-hmm.
business ownership. Surround yourself with successful entrepreneurs, um, and just ask lots of questions. There's no stupid questions. So, just you know, surround yourself with great entrepreneurs, read everything you can get your hands on, and just constantly ask questions. Um, and when you do that, um, you're setting yourself up for success.
That's it, right? So, for those who want to learn more about your courses and who want to reach you out, what's the best links that we could add on our show notes? Can you give it to our listeners as well?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, you can go to my website. It's www.thinkbigwithgeoffreykent.com. Jeffrey is the Old English spelling, so it's Geoffrey. So that's the easiest way to get in touch with me. as I mentioned, everything I do is on alignable.com. So you can go to Alignable and then look up Entrepreneur University Group. That's, or you can look, just Geoffrey Kent up on Alignable and get to my profile. But you could also look up my Entrepreneur University Group. Um, you could look me up on, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Quora, so there are a variety of places that you can find me. But I would say the easiest, the best starting point is just to go to my website, which is www.thinkbigwithjeffreykent.com.
That's it. So for those who are listening, I will put that on our show notes below. So make sure if you have any questions or if you're interested to learn more about Jeffrey's courses and how he could help you with in terms to your entrepreneurial journey. So make sure to check that out on our show notes below. So we're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, YouTube Music, SoundCloud, and Amazon Music. So whatever you are listening right now in the podcast, whatever podcast directory you are using, so you could probably check that out on our show notes below or above. Yeah, so whatever. So Jeffrey, again, thank you so much for having some time on our podcast session on this interview. You gave a lot of value. You provided a lot of value to me, not only to me, but for my close knit community. And appreciate you drop by on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me on the podcast. I'm happy to share what little knowledge I have with your audience, and so I've had an absolute pleasure talking to you, and happy to share it at any time in the future that I can be of help.